All right. So I would like to introduce Dave Cracky. Dave, like I said earlier, is a Oregon brain injury advocate. And Dave, I will let you go ahead and take it away. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Annie. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate the chance to be here today. This is a real important time in Oregon for brain injury advocacy. As mentioned, my name is Dave Cracky. I am with the Center on Brain Injury Research and Training at the University of Oregon. Prior to my appointment to the position of Oregon's brain injury advocate in 2018, I was a litigator. I've been an attorney in Oregon since 1990, and I've been on the teams that created what's known as Max's Law, the nation's first enacted youth return to play law after a concussion. Jenna's Law, which was the law that we followed up Max's Law with, that applied those same concussion or youth concussion return to play protocols for all young athletes in the state, and also incorporated some really significant education components for parents and players, referees, and coaches. In 2020, my colleague Melissa McCart and I wrote what is known as House Bill 4140. And for those of you who are in the education system, you'll know that a student with disabilities, after maybe 4, 5, 7, 10, 12 weeks, whatever it might be, is eligible for what's called a 504 plan, which is a formal accommodations plan. But we knew that, and then beyond the 504 plan is what's called an IEP, an individualized education program for kids who are disabled, to make sure that they, under the ADA, that they get the education they deserve. But we knew that there was a gap in treatment, or a gap in that process from the time of injury until a 504 plan might be suggested or considered, where a concussed student needs academic, social, and behavioral accommodations, or they risk falling very far behind because of this, because in very lay terms, their brain is broken. Much like we would never expect a student with a broken leg to get back out on the basketball court or play softball or whatever. Similarly, we should not expect a student with a quote unquote broken brain to function at that same level without that they were at prior to the concussion or the brain injury during that healing process. And so we created this mechanism for applying academic, behavioral, and social accommodations in what is broadly known as return to school protocol. You'll notice that it's not merely academic. We understood that the behavioral and the social aspects of school involvement, school life, are really critical. And so we made sure that the accommodations provided for those additional layered responses, layered accommodations that are so necessary. I am here today also to speak about Senate Bill 420. It is a bill that is working its way through the legislature, and we are at a very critical time right now. Senate Bill 420 is a bill that I drafted, and that will ultimately, if it passes, provide accommodations. Will provide brain injury resource navigation services that will connect people with brain injury to appropriate, person-centered, equitable, geographically relevant supports and services that will help them in their recovery. It is critically important that a person with brain injury receive accommodations, receive access to those supports and services, resources that are out there, or they really risk falling into this downward spiral. Brain injury, ultimately, if it's untreated, unrecognized, and kind of unacknowledged, can lead to a very dark place for a lot of people that results in extreme isolation, a lot of despair, a lot of depression, a lot of hopelessness. If, on the other hand, we provide them with access to resources, to the supports and services that are appropriate and that are close by and they can actually access, we know that the trajectory for recovery is greatly improved. And so that's what we are attempting to do here with Senate Bill 420. Oregon is one of 11 states in the nation without this type of a program. And for a state that has been on the cutting edge of so much very innovative brain injury policy, including those bills that or those laws that I mentioned briefly earlier, it is really kind of an embarrassment for me. I deal with a lot of folks on the national level, and they are somewhat shocked that we don't have a resource navigation program in Oregon. I want to acknowledge my friend, great friend, Fern Wilgus, who was scheduled to speak here today and has a conflict. And so she asked me to speak here in her stead, which I'm absolutely happy to do. But I got to tell you, you guys are missing out not having Fern here. She is just a wonderful human being. She is a brain injury survivor. She's 80 years old, a member of the LGBTQ community. She has been an activist I've known and have worked with Fern for 15 years. She and I were interviewed on KBOO yesterday morning. Oh, great, Annie, I love that. We were interviewed on KBOO yesterday morning for an hour on Senate Bill 420 and other kind of circumstances, needs of the brain injury community in Oregon. Fern is one of the leaders of a peer-to-peer support group here in Portland called Brain Injury Connections Northwest, BIC-NW.org. And they are providing one of the most important services for people with brain injury, and that is connecting them with peers who have brain injury, letting them talk peer-to-peer to understand the commonality of the troubles that they are experiencing, to share their successes, to share the access, where they find the resources that have helped them, etc. So hats off to Fern. I know she really is disappointed that she couldn't be here, but the reason she is not here is she is at, I believe, Clackamas County, speaking with first responders about brain injury and about how first responders can better assess a brain injury at the scene of whatever the injury might be. And as a litigator for 28 years prior to assuming this position, I can tell you that first responder recognition of a brain injury is just critical for everything that follows that brain injury survivor as they attempt to access the resources and the benefits that they are entitled to. What happens, or what generally happens, is a first responder will show up at any given injury scene, and there's one question that they tend to ask, only one, with regard to brain injury, and that is loss of consciousness. And they will literally ask the person who was injured, did you lose consciousness? And that is akin to me asking all of you, tell me what you don't remember. Okay, it's a nonsensical question. It makes, from a legal standpoint, it's ridiculous. From a practical standpoint, it's ridiculous. Instead, what we are hoping they will adopt, and what they have adopted in certain circumstances, thanks to our advocacy, is a two-part question. This is a question that is used by the Department of Defense for veterans or for military personnel in service in combat situations and elsewhere. And they will say, what's the last thing you remember before the injury? What's the next thing you remember after the injury? And what that does is it creates, or it identifies missing time, that gap in memory. I have had many clients over the years when I was litigating who were literally up and walking around whatever the injury scene is, talking to people, interacting with first responders and others. And yet when you ask them later, they will say I remember seeing, in a case of a car collision, for instance, I remember seeing headlights in my, coming up behind me really fast. Then I remember being in the emergency room. And so you have a huge period of time where there is essentially a loss of consciousness, at least a loss of awareness. It's not blacked out, unresponsive, but it is nonetheless indicative of loss of consciousness. Where those brain injury signs, symptoms, and behaviors, and don't get me wrong, loss of consciousness is by no means a criteria for brain injury. In fact, if there are any medical providers here, they should know, probably do know, that loss of consciousness occurs in less than 10% of all brain injuries. And so it is by no means a criteria. However, there is a kind of this inherent prejudice that is related to that lack of loss of consciousness, and where the first responders fail to document the signs, symptoms, and behaviors consistent with a brain injury, that follows them to the ER, follows them to their primary care, follows them to any administrative, legal, or other proceeding. And it's unfortunately a bit of information that is overly oversized in the defenses that are utilized by the typically insurance companies who don't want to pay for the just damages that they are responsible for paying. And they do that by pointing out that there's no loss of consciousness at the scene, there's no identification or no recognition of any signs, symptoms, or behaviors consistent with a brain injury. And they're very persuasive. They bring in their paid experts to say that this is therefore determinative that there was not a brain injury, and in fact, it's instead malingering or somatoform disorder or whatever it might be. So very, very difficult situation to overcome in certain litigation scenarios. But I'm happy to say that Fern and others are out there trying to change that and make a difference. It's going to help everybody. God forbid anybody needs that type of advocacy, but when you do, boy, oh boy, do you need it. And so I am going to now switch to a short slide deck on Senate Bill 420. Annie, I'm going to go ahead and try clicking share screen. Am I enabled to do that?
You should be.
Let me see what happens. If there are technical issues, I'm just going to come back and we'll just chat about it.
No problem.
Don't want this to be too disruptive. So let's see what happens. Okay, I am seeing an awful lot here. Can you guys see that?
Nope.
Nope.
You can always email it to me too, Dave, if that's easier.
Okay, that would have probably been something better to do. Oh, there we go. There's the window. Okay. Let me see if this works. Perfect. Can you see that?
Coming. Yep.
Okay, let me try to get into full screen, and let me just, for fun, let me do that. Great. And now, if you don't mind, I'm going to minimize my screen. Okay. So Senate Bill 420, brain injury resource navigation. So Senate Bill 420, in a nutshell, directs the Department of Human Services, the Oregon Department of Human Services, to provide specified services to individuals with brain injuries and to convene a brain injury advisory committee. Revises the department to report to the Legislative Assembly during odd number regular sessions on services provided and number of individuals served. You have our chief sponsors there. I want to give a special shout out to Senator Deb Patterson. Absolutely joy, wonderful person to work with. Representative Courtney Neron from Tigard Tualatin area, who was the chief sponsor of the Academic, Behavioral, and Social Accommodations Bill that I mentioned. And then Senator Taylor, Senator Manning, regular sponsors, Senator Anderson's Brock Smith, Finley Frederick, Gelser-Bluin, Sarah Gelser-Bluin, Senator Gelser-Bluin has also been there forever. She and I worked together on Max's Law back in 2009. That's the return to play law. Senators Hayden and Canope are both Republicans. Hayden from the Southern Willamette Valleys, Tim Canope from the Bend or the Redmond area. Both great supporters of our efforts, understanding that this is a bipartisan, actually a nonpartisan issue. It can affect anyone, anywhere in this state. And it's just really great to have those guys on board, demonstrating that bipartisan nature, because that really does matter. In the definition, I want to point out the Brain Injury Advisory Committee, because that's a really important aspect of this bill. It follows the maxim, nothing about us without us. We have a mandated group on that committee that are people with lived experience of brain injury, who understand the needs and gaps in services for people with brain injury. And so really important for us to get that involved, to get brain injury survivors directing the work of the of DHS to make sure that that actually happens. The accountability measures in there are also really important, because it will do a couple of things, including demonstrating how significant this problem is in Oregon. CDC estimates that there are 84,000 Oregonians living with chronic long-term effects of brain injury. There are 13,500 Oregonians seen at the emergency room or inpatient hospital care every year. and the number that are seen at primary care, alternative care, and who just don't go is probably, some estimates, including a great doctor up at OHSU, estimates that there's 80% beyond that who are not seen. We did a survey a couple of years ago that shows that the average person with a brain injury in Oregon needs 12 distinct services and supports, and that 48% do not get the support because they are not aware of the services. Now, it's the awareness of the services that Senate Bill 420 will address. It will provide a kind of a central location, much like 211 or 988, the new mental health, behavioral health crisis line, or 911, numbers that we should all understand that they are there if we need help. This will be a similar type of program and will provide access to the various thought bubbles that we see around that person. The icon there of the person with a brain injury needs help, and she doesn't know where to go to find it. This is exactly what this program will do. It will connect that person utilizing a warm handoff. This is not information and referral. It's not go to our website. It's actual a person who will connect with those resource providers, make sure that that connection stays, and that will occur through interval follow-up care, or excuse me, follow-up contact at 1 week, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever those intervals are. We're really lucky we are able to pull the best from around the country in terms of how the program is developed, how the employees are supposed to work, et cetera. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. This is a graphic that just kind of talks about the various concerns that a person with a brain injury might have. And then on the right-hand side, the navigator will connect to various things, including housing services, employment, education, mental and behavioral health services, disability services, veteran services, and much more. This graphic represents or demonstrates the intersection of brain injury with some of our most pressing societal problems right now, including homelessness, including substance use disorder, including co-occurring mental health and behavioral health services, disability services, et cetera. The more that we are able to recognize brain injury and provide the accommodations or the resources available for the response to that brain injury, the more we are going to avoid people falling into these deeper holes. If we, for instance, with housing services, if we have a person with a brain injury and we can get them into get them into a resource navigator who can connect them with vocational rehabilitation or other provisions that will keep them employed, they are much more likely to stay housed and not fall through the cracks and become homeless. This is very important for the legislature. I know it's a real, kind of a lot of numbers to digest, and I just want to point out, can you guys see my cursor? Okay, not hearing anybody. I hope you can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. It's this number down here, this 13,987,407 that I want you to focus on. This is a report that Dr. Stephen Lindner, a PhD out of the Oregon Health Sciences University Healthcare Economics or Economics Department did for us a couple of years ago. And it focuses on avoidance of psychiatric inpatient, Medicaid enrollment, switching from institutional care to home and community-based services, and jail avoidance. And only in those 4 very limited criteria, and using an N, this is gradual enrollment increase, where the enrollment first year starts with 500, then 800, then 1,000, then 1,200. Then by year 10 over here, this estimate is 1,350 people accessing resource navigation per year. Well, based on models that we know are accurate, we anticipate that Oregon is going to instead have plus or minus 2,700 people accessing this program when it is up and running. And that is going to essentially double this number here to plus or minus $28 million. And the cost to the state is about $1 million per year So we have, if you have $1 million per year and you multiply that by 10, you have $10 million of cost. When you double this number to $28 million and subtract, sorry about that, and subtract the 10 million from that 28 million, I hope you guys are following along, you end up with a net savings of $18 million to the state. And so for every dollar you put in of this 10 million, you're getting out $1.80. And so in other words, it's an extremely cost effective. In fact, it pays for itself and then some. And that's only in those 4 domains. And quite frankly, that's not even recognizing the most important aspect of brain injury resource navigation. And that is allowing the person, the brain injury survivor, to live their highest and best life, getting them back engaged, getting them involved with friends and support groups, getting them employed if possible. And if they can't get employed, getting them into volunteer opportunities. So not only does this make fiscal sense, but it also makes obvious social sense as well. This slide is just a number of our supporters. As you can see, our support is widespread. It's throughout the state. It's with some incredibly powerful advocacy organizations, providers, everything from the Eastern Oregon Center for Independent Living, the Oregon Health Sciences University, Brain Rehab Network, an incredible rehab facility in Tualatin, Fern's organization, of course, Brain Injury Connections Northwest. I want to give a special shout out to Cerebellums. Cerebellums is a bakery in Multnomah Village. If any of you live in the Portland area, highly encourage you to pop up to Cerebellums. It's right there on the main strip, right by Annie Bloom's books, right by Fat City Cafe. And it is the brainchild of a gentleman named Rick Limoncello, who essentially created a place for people with brain injury to come and figure out how to work again. And so Cerebellum's Bakery, cute name obviously, is a place where you can get cupcakes and pastries of various kinds that are all put together, all baked by people with brain injury. And I got to tell you, I go there regularly just to check in and say hi to a lot of my friends up there, and they are just doing incredibly wonderful work. Down here at the bottom, the Oregon Athletic Trainers Society, I believe, really important group for the return to play work, Central City Concern. I know Blanchet House is on this call, and I want to thank you at Blanchet House. I know that Emily Harrington at the medical clinic there is doing wonderful work, and we're going to be approaching Emily soon to see about brain injury screening. We are working with Central City Concern to incorporate a brain injury screening operation as well. This I will just show you represents some, not by any stretch of the imagination, all of our supporters who have been willing to sign on to our support letter. We've been asking people to sign the support letter both for individually and organizationally for some time, and we have tons of support throughout the state. It looks like that is it. I thought there was kind of an ending slide. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing to get out of this, unless there's any questions with regard to any of the slides before I do. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And are we back to normal? Have I not hijacked everything? And now you're seeing all of my emails, and maybe you can help me answer a few of them.
You're good.
Okay, very good. Well, I think I've probably bumped up to the end of my time, even with the added 5 minutes. And so I just want to thank you again. I will throw it out there that if anybody please feels like contacting their local senator and representative, today literally is the time. Today is the deadline that the legislature is putting on for the kind of the other senators, other representatives to identify their fiscal priorities. And so it's a real important time right now for the public to speak out, for organizations to speak out, and you literally need to do that by contacting your representatives. And if you wanted to get even more focused, it would be Senator Steiner, Senator Wagner, Senator Campos, Representative Valderrama. Kim, I'm seeing the question. Does it help to ask the questions that first responders to ask? if we are present during an incident before the professionals arrive. The best thing that you can do at that point is to hang around and wait for the first responders and to be a witness, someone who actually gives their name, especially if you saw whatever the event was. And for instance, if you saw the outcome of the event, I represented a young woman who was rear-ended over on MLK a number of years ago. She was pushed by a big truck. She was pushed into a telephone pole, rendered unconscious for about 6 minutes. The first responders showed up at about 6.5 minutes, and she had regained consciousness. Thank God there was a witness who stuck around and said, no, she was out for 6 minutes. We were pounding on her window for 5-6 minutes before she finally woke up, because otherwise the first responders would have put loss of consciousness no. So yes, if you were ever a witness, let's hope you're not, but if you're ever a witness to a situation like that, yes, please stick around. As an attorney, as a litigator, I got to tell you that the witnesses were some of the most important witnesses at any given proceeding. Don't want to scare you off thinking that you're going to have to go to trial or anything like that, because you probably won't, but it's just the right thing to do. It's a real good Samaritan thing to do. So absolutely, for sure. Thank you, Olivia. I appreciate that comment as well. I will take any questions that you guys have before I kind of, give up the microphone here. Okay.
Oh, it looks like Michelle Foley has a question for you.
Okay.
Good morning, Dave. I am wondering if this House bill has passed or how far along it is in the progress.
Yeah, the Senate Bill 420 it was one of the first bills heard by the Senate Committee on Human Services the very first day of the session. We had a wonderful hearing with a lot of brain injury survivors and professionals. We were scheduled for a work session the following Monday, and we passed unanimously out of the Senate Committee on Human Services. And then we were redirected over to Joint Ways and Means, because there is, as I mentioned, the fiscal. Anytime you're asking for money, it's a much more complicated process. That being said, we do have resources this year, and it would just be a real shame if this bill was not funded for the very, quite frankly, in the scheme of things, out of 35 or whatever it is, billion-dollar budget, not to be able to find $1 million for 84,000 Oregonians to improve not only their lives, but just improve the outcome of their injury as well. So yeah, Michelle, that it is, it's in a strong position, but we need all the help we can get right now. Thank you. Okay, thank you all very much. I do hope you might be willing to pick up the phone and make some calls today. That would be really, really helpful.
Thank you, Dave, so much. So such important information, and thanks for taking the time to share it with us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And Dave, if anyone has any follow-up questions, could they would they be able to email you by chance?
You better believe it. That's exactly what I do. I welcome anybody to email me with anything. My email address, Annie, I think it's probably on the group email that went out, but if you maybe want to share it with, oh, you know what, I can just share it right in here.
Yeah, if you put it in the chat, that would be lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. So direct any of your follow-up questions to Dave. And thank you so much again, Dave, for being here. We appreciate you and all that you're doing. It's
thank you.
Important information.
Oh, it looks like I have, oh, I've directed it to Kim. Kim, sorry about that. Let me get out to everyone and I will redo that.
Perfect. Awesome.
Well, there's my cell phone. Let me put my email in there. Okay, that looks good. All right, you guys, anybody that has anything, wants to chat about anything, absolutely, please reach out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Dave. Super.
So Annie, do you need me to stick around for the rest of the meeting? Okay, because I've got a ton of things happening today, so I'm going to move on. And thanks again to Fern Wilgus for giving me this opportunity. And I know she's sorry she couldn't be here.
Yes, always. We love Fern. So thank you so much, and have a great day, Dave.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, Gabby. I see you. Next up, we have, and Gabby, how do you say your last name? Is it Tuller? Did I say that right?
Tweet.
Oh my goodness.
It's a tough one.
Totally butchered that one. My apologies. Gabby Tweer with Blanchet House. She's the community engagement manager. And welcome, Gabby. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen shared because I do have a slide deck for you today. So as Annie mentioned, hold on, sometimes it takes my screen's been doing weird things when I share. So let's see. There we go. Our logo is missing for some reason, but it says Blanchet House and Farm.
Gabby, yep, there you are. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Normally this slide has our logo on it, but for some reason it's not sharing today. So I am Gabby. I'm here from Blanchet House. I'm just going to do an overview of our different programs and services. I know a lot of you are fellow service providers, so if there's ways for us to connect or engage or kind of work together to help folks in need, we can talk through that at the end. I'll also provide my contact info. So Blanchet House, we were founded back in 1952 by some University of Portland students, really focused on offering essential aid to people in need. So we are located on 3rd and Gleason in the Northwest, kind of Old Town, Chinatown neighborhood, right across from the Steel Bridge. This is actually a photo of our original building. We are in a newer building, but on the same city block. So for the last 71 years, we have been serving those mostly experiencing housing and now also definitely food insecurity. So the program we're most well known for is our free hot meal program. We're open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner Monday through Saturday. No questions asked. Anyone can come and get a free meal. What's really unique about our service model is we do invite folks into our cafe and they get to sit down at a table in community with others, and they're served restaurant style by our volunteers. Right now we're doing upwards of 1,000 meals a day between breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And our meals are prepared in our kitchen by professional chefs that we have on staff with predominantly donated ingredients. So it's really a nice way we're getting food that would have otherwise gone to waste and turning it into nourishing meals for our guests. We really focus on balanced meals. So it tends to be a main protein option. We do a side salad, fruit, a piece of bread. In the morning, we're doing oatmeal. We serve hot coffee. We have water. And when people come into our cafe, we like to call them our guests. Our full name is Blanchet House of Hospitality. So we really do prioritize that hospitality element. And really just recognizing our guests and their inherent human dignity, connecting with them. We're seeing a lot of folks pretty regularly, so they're getting to build up relationships with our staff and volunteers, kind of laying a foundation of trust. The meal is definitely kind of a bridge to other services. So the folks coming inside are experiencing housing or food insecurity, a lot of them unsheltered homelessness, so living out on the streets, as well as those in and out of shelter situations, but as well as some people that are housed but elderly, disabled, maybe they can't cook for themselves or they just don't have the financial means to be providing their own food. SNAP benefits actually don't go towards hot prepared meals. So someone being able to come in and get that option from us is really worthwhile service for them. And it really is a no barrier program. So no questions asked, anyone can come and get a hot meal. So the cafe fosters this nice community environment. People get to connect. There's often times when you are living unsheltered, lots of isolation and loneliness. So being able to come to a safe place with others is super meaningful. And then, as I mentioned, the meal kind of is that bridge. So we have peer support specialists on staff that are able to refer people to housing options, other service providers, kind of get them that next level of care they might need beyond just the meal. So this is just another photo in the cafe. We were closed for most of the pandemic. We shifted to a to-go style service. So the cafe was closed. We were still giving out the meals, but we've been welcoming folks back into that cafe since May of last year. And The March numbers just came in, and March was our largest month of meals. I think we did upwards of 27,000 meals. A lot of COVID assistance and other pandemic measures and that were put into place have lapsed. So we are definitely seeing that increased need for food. And I even know just on the food insecurity front with inflation and the other increases in food costs, our service is becoming even more essential to everyone in the community. So then kind of the peer support program really that I touched on already has been instrumental in transforming our services and taking it one step further. There has always been mental health, behavioral health concerns with the population we're serving, as well as substance abuse, but that has just seemed to be heightened and increased over the last couple of years. So having those peer support specialists, they have lived experience, they have training, and just able to connect with our guests in a deeper way and then make those referrals when needed. So that is something that we've really spearheaded and prioritized, and just continue to ramp up those additional supports. And then we've also expanded beyond the meal just to other essential aids. So we give out hygiene products frequently as care kits, so small travel size hygiene items. People get to take these with them as they leave the cafe. We also give out clothing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at lunch. That's a nice way for people to get those items. Everything that we do get is donated by community members, which is just wonderful to see people wanting to support this community and really getting them the items that they need. In the winter, we're handing out a lot of like rain ponchos, hand warmers, things like that to keep people warm. In the summer, water bottles, electrolyte packets, keeping people hydrated. So this is a photo of our clothing closet. We actually did a shoe pop-up back in February. We gave out 360 pairs of shoes. We're starting to continue to expand our services. So we actually offered free veterinary care in our parking lot last Tuesday, and we vaccinated 47 dogs. A lot of people have companion animals. They're actually welcome to bring them into our cafe. So we're kind of looking at ways that we can support them as well. And then we did kind of a nice intro in the last presentation to our health center. So we do have a health center on site. It is focused on our housing program, which I'll go into next, but we also do pop-up clinics in our parking lot. We've done flu and COVID vaccine clinics. We have a regular foot care clinic. So it is the Harrington Health Center. It is its own entity, but housed within Blanchet House, and Emily Harrington, who heads up the clinic, is wonderful. She's on our board, and she's actually an alumni of the University of Portland Nursing School. So we have University of Portland nursing staff and students on site several days a week to provide healthcare. And really, when we're looking at healthcare, there is that physical element of health, of course, but really that behavioral, emotional, and mental health as well. Hoping to increase the overall well-being of those in our program. So that's meal program transitioning into the housing program. So the cafe is the first floor of our building, and then we have transitional housing on floors 2 through 4 in the Old Town location. So it's a 7 to 9 month work-based program for men. We have a case manager on site. So it basically starts with a phone call to her to do an intake. A 3-day trial, and then from there, if it's a good fit, they kind of get officially onboarded into our program. For the first 90 days, they are working in our kitchen, helping support the meal program, really having that routine and responsibility and accountability, gives people structure, brings back confidence, establishes job skills, as well as it's kind of nice for them to be giving back to the community frequently. They're the ones that are receiving help. So to being able to give help is super meaningful for them. After 90 days, they are going and applying for jobs, going back to school, training, different things like that. So hopefully securing a job outside of Blanchet House. And then they still are living here completely free, so they can kind of build up their financial savings and hopefully get on to a place where they are able to secure stable housing. So we really are goals in mind for folks when they enter our program is employment, and housing. There are a lot of other goals such as reconnecting with family, overcoming any like other legal or financial barriers that have been hindrances in the past, kind of going alongside with that housing and employment goal. And really our case manager is meeting with folks from the onset, setting those goals and helping guide and work toward them. They're meeting with the case manager regularly, and it's transitional housing. We want to make sure folks are transitioning to a stable place post their time in our program. And then we also do have a housing program out at on a farm in Carlton. So it's a little outside of McMinnville, about an hour outside of Portland. And this is a residential recovery program. So it isn't treatment, but the clients that we are serving and focus on are in recovery. There are AA and NA meetings on site, and really the rural environment provides a nice, calm, peaceful, restorative healing place. We have therapeutic animals, a beekeeping program, a wood shop, and a lot of people who maybe haven't found success in traditional treatment find ongoing success out at the farm. So it is clean and sober living, but really tailored towards those in recovery. Our downtown program is clean and sober living as well, and definitely a lot of folks in recovery, and we are strong proponents and advocates of ongoing recovery. But this program out at the farm really is tailored to that. Our farm manager is actually an alumni of the program and has been the manager for the last 12 years. It's a really nice, peer supportive environment out there, really unique and special place. And the farm, the housing program, and the meal program, they're all completely free to those who access them. And then I just like to mention it because we do have a connection between downtown and the farm. So we are getting that excess food from local businesses. It's being served into meals in our cafe. And then we do collect all the food waste and we transport it out to Blanchet Farm, as well as some other partner farms, to feed animals, and it turns into slop. So really trying to be as sustainable as possible too, while looking at our various programs. So I do always just kind of like to end with ways to get involved. I do recognize that a lot of you are service providers, so it might be more meaningful for us to make other connections or have clients that might need additional help in meal services, but we have about 40 volunteers coming on site every day to help run our meal services, as well as community giving back with sack lunches and care kits. Well, we collect clothing donations, and we just started a bottle drop program. So lots of ways to get involved and support. But really, we like to be kind of a beacon of hope for people, let them know that people care, treat them with respect, just recognize that they are a fellow human being in our community that has maybe fallen on hard times, that it's not who they are. So how can we best support them and help them get on the journey, hopefully to a path or a little bit of a better life? So that is all I wanted to share. I know it's kind of a lot of information because we have the 3 programs going on. I'm seeing some questions in the chat now, so I'll just go ahead and answer those, and then we can open it up if anyone else wants to speak up or add more. So how can someone donate clothing to us? So we're open Monday through Saturday. Our donation hours are 8 to 10:30 a.m. and 1:30 to 4 p.m. So you can just feel free to stop by during those hours. You just pull up to the Gleason side of our building, knock on the double door entrance, and someone will come out and assist you. We are serving predominantly adults. So we do ask that they are adult size clothing, and we are limited on how many women's items we can take. So really right now kind of focus on men's items in larger sizes, but shoes are also acceptable. And we do take sleeping essentials as well. So blankets, sleeping bags, things like that. Okay, does Blanchet House help guests with their savings efforts? Yes, so that's something that our case manager will be working with the individuals on, kind of coming up with a savings plan, especially once they secure that job. How can we get that nice financial base underneath them before they are going out and getting a house or housing? So that is definitely something that they work on an individual basis with our case manager. Thank you, Kim, for the nice comment. What requirement do you have for a homeless person to be accepted into your programs and services? I've heard Blanchet House is to serve men only. Is that true? So the meal program is open to everyone, no barrier, no questions asked. Anyone can come and get a free meal. For the housing program, yes, it is a men's only program. Clean and sober is a big requirement. People do have to be able to have some capacity to work. We definitely will accommodate different physical abilities, but there is a little bit of a work element in our program, as well as if someone is really in need of a higher level of care, especially on that mental or behavioral health element, we may or may not be the best program for them. So that's what it really starts with an intake interview with our case manager to make sure it's going to be a good fit for all involved. And if it's not a good fit for us, we have our peer support specialist who's actually going to be a housing navigator. So she can help get folks into another option that might work better for them. Do you do referrals for participants that are interested in I can't speak, in an employment program? So yeah, that's the sort of thing where our peer support specialist, if that's something of interest, like we have a partnership with Stone Soups. One of our residents actually just went through there. We have connections with a whole bunch of other providers and programs. So that is something that our case manager and peer support specialists, again, kind of work out on an individual basis. But we do a lot of connecting and referring, because definitely we have our services that we focus on. I mean, there's a lot of other organizations focusing and doing great work. So how can we all kind of work together to get individuals the help and support that they need? They just keep coming in. Marie, I actually have talked with someone from Financial Beginnings. I'm actually a volunteer and I'm going to teach a Financial Beginnings class at 11:55 today. So financial literacy for our residents is something that I'm really strongly pushing our residential team to. Right now, it's something we definitely talk about, but we could increase our efforts. And Financial Beginnings has kind of helped me spearhead that conversation internally. So hoping to make more progress that way. How do we contact the case manager for a referral? It'll take me just a second, but I can get the direct line for our case manager and I will plop that into the chat before I leave today. The residential farm is out in Carlton, Oregon. So it's Yamhill County. So it's about an hour outside of this city. Are there Spanish speaker advocates? So we don't have direct Spanish speaker advocates on our team. I myself do speak Spanish and have provided some bilingual translations, especially to meal guests or people that call us on the phone if needed. But that's not something that we have someone dedicated to at this time. Do you know if the health center provides sexual health care? The health center can provide that. We also have people from the county that are outside in our parking lot 2 days a week that provide sexual health care and support. Contact info. Yes, I will provide contact info. And yes, the peer support program is ongoing, definitely not short term. We've been continuing to expand and hope to keep expanding that. So does anyone else have any other questions? Also, I did just put my info in the chat. Feel free to reach out at any time. Really, if you are interested in more of the housing programs, I can be kind of a conduit and connect you with our case manager and farm manager, as well as I'm just kind of happy to field anything else that comes up. I am also going to put in, this is our case manager's phone number. So that's a great way to connect for an immediate referral or if someone is in need of wanting to talk through our program. Pet supplies beyond food. Yes, we are always happy to accept collars and leashes. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. I really hope you have a good rest of your day. I'm going to stick around for a little bit and then may have to pop off early.
Thank you so much, Gabby. And thanks for the information and all the awesome questions. And I love that Blanchet House has been here in Portland area for so long, the history, and just the depth of your programming, and to see your, it's not stagnant, it's constantly growing and evolving. And I just love seeing that. So thank you so much for sharing. Awesome. All right. Let's see. Last but not least, Marie, there you are. Marie Biersch is the program manager for Financial Beginnings Oregon. Super excited to have you share today. As Gabby stated, super supportive of financial literacy, and we're hosting currently the last of our 3-part series in our teen workshop that Marie helped us schedule and organize tomorrow night. And just excited to have you here today to share and just really support what you do. So thank you so much, Marie.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm supposed to compete with like mental health, which is probably our biggest crisis in Oregon, and then like such an amazing program like Blanchet House. Oh my goodness. Because we're going to talk about finance. That's like the most boring thing.
Important. It's so important.
Luckily,
it's important.
Luckily, I'm here to talk about not the actual finance piece of it, but what partnership looks like and helping our community become more financially empowered through financial literacy. I'm going to share my screen. I have a short little presentation to share with you all to help keep with that engagement, hopefully. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. That's just my logo right now, I hope. Okay. Okay, so to help with that engagement, I just have a question. You can throw it in the answer in the chat, or I don't mind if you unmute. But out of the 50 states, where do you think Oregon ranks in financial literacy? Any guesses? Oh, let's see, they're coming in. 46 and 26. Wow, those are very different. Any more guesses? 47, 40th. No Googling allowed. I'm just kidding. You can Google it. 30th. Okay, so Kim is the closest. So right now we are 31st out of 50. And there's a couple of important things about that. First of all, about 60% of us Oregonians are spending more than we earn each month. About 40% of us could pull together $2,000 in the case of an emergency. Less than half of all Oregonians pay their credit card balances in full every month. However, the fact that about half of us do is really commendable. So of course we put the statistic on there like, oh my gosh, but really let's also acknowledge that half of the folks that have credit card debt do pay off their credit cards every month. But of those that don't, 33% of them are only making minimum monthly payments, which if you've ever heard about the minimum monthly payment trap and things like that, that can be kind of detrimental and make it so that the credit card companies are making a lot of money and we're losing a lot of money. So let me, oops, okay. Hold on. There we go. There is a Senate bill, SB 3, that's being worked on right now, but as of right now, the ODE calls for financial literacy standards, and they have really good ones. They're based off the national standards in the K-12 curriculum, but there's no requirement for that as a graduation requirement. And so that means teachers are responsible to just kind of, if they want to include that, they can. They have to figure that out themselves. There's not a lot of support since it's not a requirement to graduate. If you do teach financial literacy, here's the standards, but we're not really going to help you figure out how to reach those. Go Google Dave Ramsey or something like that. Also, a lot of adults that are responsible for children aren't comfortable talking to students about finance, to their kids. That could be for a number of reasons. Some of it's cultural. Some of it is just, it's a very private thing. We've been taught not to talk about money. We're not supposed to talk about what we make. We're not supposed to talk about things like that. So students typically aren't necessarily learning about money in school. and they're not necessarily learning about it at home. So that's where we come in. Just to pop in there, the stats were from, I think, probably like 2017. I think in 2021, we're actually a little bit higher rated in our financial literacy compared to the other 50 states, but we are still about those other statistics, like 50% paying off their credit cards and things like that. Those are all still accurate. But I have a different presentation that is a little bit longer, that I have it updated, but this one was because I'm doing kind of a short 20-minute one, I pulled this from an other one. But the statistics are still pretty dire when you think about it. Okay, so Financial Beginnings was started in 2005 with a mission to empower youth and adults to take control of their financial futures. That's why we exist. We want to help bridge this gap. And we're going to talk a little bit about what our curriculum looks like, and then how our model, it could be a really great benefit to some of your programs if you chose to want to talk a little bit further about partnering. Okay, so moving on. We have some pretty strong values. We want to create self-sufficiency. And by self-sufficiency, I'm not talking about financial freedom. That's kind of a obsolete term. It's more wanting to create tools and resources for people that when they come up to financial decisions, they have the tools and the resources they need to navigate that and make the best decision for themselves and their family. So it's not a, you should be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that, as a lot of financial literacy has been in the past, which is pretty, it can be somewhat exclusionary, because that path can only work for certain folks, and other folks, it's not a path that is very accessible. So rather, we just want everyone to have the tools and everyone have the resources so they can make their own decisions, because the best person that can make a decision for themselves is themselves, and not someone just saying, don't ever take out a credit card, or, you know, don't take out any student loans. Like, what decision are you having to make, and what tools do you have? And then you can make an informed decision. So that's what we mean by self-sufficiency. We want it to be accessible. We want it to be equitable. We want there to be some meaningful cross-sector collaboration. And that's collaboration between financial institutions, investment opportunities, understanding your taxes, understanding that type of thing. And then we want to be culturally responsive and have high quality programming. So we're constantly updating, we're constantly getting feedback and trying to make sure that our lessons are culturally relevant for the participants we're trying to serve. Okay. This is just a quick overview of our different programs. I'll go into them a little bit in depth just for the sake of time, not a ton. But our Financial Footings is our K through 6 program. There's 2 levels. K through 2 is Footings 1, and then 3 through 6 is Footings 2. And that's meant to be taught to elementary school students. Our Financial Framings is a macroeconomics look at finances, specifically meant for middle school, because it actually meets a middle school requirement for economics. So if folks want to partner with us and have us teach that piece, we have a program for that. Our Financial Foundations, that's our kind of bread and butter one. That's middle school, high school, and that's teaching personal finance. We're talking budgeting and spending and credit and investment, savings, and all of those personal finance concepts that we want our students to know young and early, so that when they start getting into the world of work and making money and making financial decisions, they have those tools and the knowledge of those terms already in their minds. Pathways is specifically a program for students that are looking to go into higher education or post-secondary education. It talks about things like comparing costs in schools and how to finance college, how to manage debt within college and after you're out, and that type of thing. SAFE is our adult program. So it is very similar to our foundations program, where it teaches the personal finance concepts. It has the same 5 different subjects, but with it being for adults, it's of course framed a little bit differently, because we're expecting folks have already been in the workforce. Maybe they already have some student debt, or maybe they are just wanting to get a little bit stronger handle on their finances and understand some financial literacy, but it's not introducing concepts most folks already know. What credit is, we just talk about what makes up a credit score and how that's monitored and who to talk to if somebody tries to, take your identity and that type of thing. And then last is our Forward program, and that one is specifically for vulnerable adults and folks that might have experienced like a financial hardship or financial trauma. And that one's a very specific program where we actually take a person's financial picture and help them get control of their of maybe the trials or the barriers that they're facing. It could just mean that they would love to have a bank account, but they're on check systems. How do you navigate that? Or, I'd love to have these goals of buying a house or buying a car, but, my credit is awful. And I don't know how to get around that. There's collections, there's those types of things. So it's really meant to help folks be lifted out of financial trauma and into a place where they can move forward with, confidence and being empowered to have control of their finances. Okay. Quickly getting into it a little bit deeper. This is that footings program. The K through 2, they're really small little bits, and so they're little 20-minute lessons, and they're usually taught by the taught by the teachers in the classrooms. 3 through 6 is actually taught by financial beginnings volunteers, and we'll also talk a little bit about what that looks like. Footings is also translated into Spanish. So we do a lot of programming with schools that are either bilingual or needed in Spanish, and also in after-school programming, which can be really helpful, like with groups like Adelante Mujeres or the Chicas program and things like that. This is kind of an example of what they look like. These are the different, on the left side of the screen there, that's the different modules. We're talking about what money is and how to manage your money. So it's kind of an intro into budgets, an intro into what banking looks like, and then an introduction into maybe future use of credit or investment and things like that, and interest. And it's all very activity based. It's not a lecture based. It's all done with workbooks and activities and group projects. It's really fun. Okay, our foundations. This is that middle school, high school program. The modules are budgeting, credit, spending, investing, and protection, as you can see there. All of these are taught in 2 levels, and that helps with the wide variety of age. So for instance, there's budgeting 1 and then there's budgeting 2. And budgeting 1 might be what we teach to middle school age students. And then we might do a series of budgeting 1 and budgeting 2 for high school students, because that first level introduces the concept and talks about it, and then the second level builds on that strategy and puts a lot of things into practice. All of these are really activity based as well, so it's everybody gets a workbook, and we do activities together and projects together to help kind of build those concepts and put them into practice, because some of these students haven't experienced making money yet, or having to pay their own bills. And so we've tried to put it into context for them that they'll understand before they get into that part of their lives. This is an example of kind of what it looks like. This was from our credit module. It talks about scores, and in the workbook, it talks about what makes up a score and who to contact and how to keep your score up and that type of thing. This is that post-secondary education program. These are the modules here. It talks about career and education path, comparing schools and costs, financing college, managing your debt accumulation, and managing debt after college. We do often do this course with juniors and seniors and their families and their parents. It's helpful for parents to know what to expect for their student, because sometimes, especially if it's your first child going to college, it could be a learning experience for everyone in the room. So we like to do this one with families. It's a lot of times in the evenings with a meal or something like that. But we do try to focus this towards juniors and seniors that are looking at going into post-secondary education. All of these can be taught as a series, or they can just be taught a la carte. So someone might say, we just want you to come in and talk about budgeting to my high school sophomores, or, we really want to talk about comparing costs in schools to my class of juniors as they're, finishing up their FAFSA and putting in applications and starting to get acceptance letters. How do we compare this? So we can always pick and choose. You don't have to teach these in a series. Okay, moving on. This is a kind of an example of what that looks like. So on the one side there, that's what our workbook pages looks like. And then on the right side there's an example that's in our slide deck, which is really nice because this is a live interactive slide. So the volunteers can go in and demonstrate how comparison shopping looks via using the National Center for Education Statistics. It's a really interactive program. SAFE is that adult program. So similar to the foundations, the goals and tools is budgeting and spending. Income and taxes talks about your income, talks about taxes, how those work, how those are calculated. Credit and debt, protecting yourself, which is talking about insurance and also fraud protection and what to do if your identity is stolen. And then savings and retirement. So investing, talking about benefits to taking advantage of 401ks and things like that. This one also can be taught as a series, or it can be taught just a la carte. This is an example of one of the decks, of one of the slides. This is talking about the federal income tax structure and how those are calculated. The workbooks are more resource guides. There are some activities in them, but we want to make sure, just because it's usually a lot of information, that people are going to want to be able to refer back to. So in the workbooks for each of these modules, we make sure that there are accessible sites and places, terms, and all of the things that they're learning in the actual session, so that they're not having to feel so overloaded and having to memorize the information, and they have something they can go back to when they come up to a time where they might need to have access to something. Maybe they're looking to purchase a car and they're going to do it with their first car payment. Or maybe they're coming up on tax season. We teach the income and taxes often between January and April. We partner with a lot of organizations that have us come in and do that one, and it helps folks navigate that a little bit better. Forward. Okay, this is that one that's for vulnerable adults. These are the 4 modules. They build one on top of the other. We would like for folks to commit to the 4 sessions, and we have one volunteer teach all 4. So there could be some level of trust built between the person who is coaching versus the person who is taking the course. This is also the program, I know a lot of you are service providers. This is also the program we train folks on that might be a navigator or a social worker or something like that, where the opportunity comes up to work with a participant or their family, and then we can provide the workbooks and everything you might need, and you can do that on your own. And then that way you're not having to try to get a group of people together. You can work that into some of your existing services you provide. We have a number of folks that do it that way. They just will call me up and say, we need some more forward workbooks. I taught 5 people in the last quarter, and we have that report back to us so that we can keep track of numbers and things like that. Okay, let me talk a little bit about our model. First of all, the Financial Beginnings program is completely free for the partners and participants. We provide the presentations, we provide all of the curriculum, and we provide the educator. And that's what kind of sets our model apart. There's a lot of financial literacy resources out there, and we're not for everybody. But one thing that helps lower barriers is we're not asking you, first of all, we're not asking you to buy anything, but also we're not asking you to say, here's a free curriculum, make it your own. You just have to tell us the when and the where and how many, and we'll come in and do it. We do this by connecting with community partners or individual folks. Gabby just mentioned that she uses our programming. She's already a Financial Beginnings volunteer, so she's able to bring that to her participants. We do prioritize serving economically vulnerable and underserved populations, but we do believe financial literacy is for everyone. So if anybody asks us for it anytime, we will provide that. All of our curriculum and all of our presentations and all of that are on our website, and you can access those for free. We like to make those partnerships and come into your classrooms or come into your spaces and bring people in to bring that education, but we don't want to have it have a barrier there. So if you do want to look at it or explore what that could look like, you can go to our website, you can see what all of our programs are, and you can dig into the PowerPoint presentations, the workbooks, the facilitators guides, all of that is available for free on our website. We train our volunteers. They go through an orientation, and we do trainings throughout the year to practice engagement, trauma-informed, being culturally responsive, and DEI trainings and things like that. A lot of our volunteers come from the financial sector. They have a lot of knowledge, but the financial sector doesn't always have a huge diverse group of people. So we also train a lot of volunteers from the populations that we're trying to serve. Our curriculum does meet or exceed the state education standards and the national standards. It aligns with the national best practices. So if you are looking at providing this in a school or an after-school program or something like that, we do meet those standards for the education standards. Sorry, my words today. I am drinking coffee, but it's a whole thing. Okay, just a couple little things. We do have a very large volunteer network across Oregon. Across Oregon is a little bit misleading. The majority of our programming is very I-5 corridor, Multnomah, Washington, Clackamas County, Marion, Polk County, Lane County, and then Medford, Klamath Falls. We have a pretty thriving program in the Deschutes Crook County, so that's like the Bend area. I actually live in very rural Western Lane County, and we're bringing our programming into more rural spaces, and our volunteers in our rural spaces are not as much. A lot of our core is definitely in the more urban areas of Oregon. So just disclaimer there. We have it's up to like 160 school partners across the state. It's pretty exciting to be in so many classrooms. And then we're up over 100 community organization partners. I really need to update this presentation. Sorry, y'all. Okay. I'm gonna open up for questions here, but I did want to just share this slide. If you want to partner with us or you want to talk with me more, please reach out. But basically, this is what we need to know. We want to know what you want us to come in and teach, when, what time, who my contact is, where I'm sending workbooks, where the location of the class is going to be, how many are there, what the age group, who am I serving? Am I serving adults? Am I serving kids? What age? What area in their life are they at? Are we wanting that vulnerable adults program, or are we just needing some basic financial literacy being provided? Can I do a PowerPoint? Should I bring my own equipment? And then any specific learning needs of the group. Like I want to know if it's working with folks with disabilities. I want to know if you're working with the Spanish speaking population. It needs to be in Spanish, and it needs to be a Spanish speaking volunteer, that type of thing. I will make sure this gets to Annie to push out to everybody along with my information. I'm going to also just pop this slide up for a second. I'm the program manager. That's my email, my phone number, our website's there. And then Jasper is my program and volunteer coordinator. He's the one, once we get classes done, he handles all your logistics. He makes sure you get everything you need. He makes sure you're connected with the volunteer so you know who's coming in to talk to your participants. He's kind of the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. I couldn't do my job without him. Okay, I'm gonna get out of this presentation and then take a look at questions. Okay, that was a lot of words. And again, I mean, it's finance, it's a little bit boring, but I hope that what, I hope that what we could do is at least put the bug in your ear about maybe bringing some financial literacy to the folks that you serve. And if that seems like a big lift, you give that lift to us, because that's literally what we do. Okay. Gabby, thank you. The Forward program has been successfully going now for about a year. There's been some changes to how we did it. It's been a lot more conversational and less presentation-y, which makes a lot of sense when we're talking about individuals' specific financial pictures and their financial lives. But we just got done doing a great series at Bridgeway of Hope, which is also a transitional housing and men in recovery. I think it's through the Salvation Army. And that was a really successful group. And then we've had a number of other Forward programs or series happen in this last year. So yes, that one has officially launched. And I would love to chat with you more on that if you want to bring that to your folks over there at Blanchet House. It is an amazing program, but I will say the disclaimer is we're always learning and changing. I mean, especially because when the program first started, it was very much to meet a need in the schools. And then as adult programming came out, there was already that shift of making sure that we're framing this in a way that we're not talking to adults like we're talking to students, right? And then when we're starting to, really center folks that are not served or that are underserved or that are marginalized, there needs to be examples in there. There needs to be representation, and there needs to be culturally responsive content in there that makes it so that folks feel like financial literacy and empowerment, I like to say financial wholeness, is accessible and something that they can achieve too, and not just like some, information that was from 2005 or something. So it is an amazing program, but just understand we're always learning, we're always adjusting, we're always trying to create better ways to connect with people. We offer virtual classes and in person and hybrid. Virtual classes are a great option, especially for those in rural spaces or for those that need something kind of quick, where it might be hard to get someone in the door. Because our volunteers, and we have some really amazing veteran volunteers, they are able to hop on a Zoom and teach from wherever they are, and that actually helps lower barriers. In the classroom environment, virtual isn't super well loved because of the pandemic. So we always try to make sure we have volunteers that are able to meet both needs, if it's virtual or if it's in person. Right now, the series we're doing with Annie is virtual, and it's going very successfully, and that's with students. So, it's not always, we just really want to meet participants where they are. Thank you for saying it's not boring, Annie. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Yes, Babs, if you need help connecting your clients, reach out to me. It's so funny, Olivia, when you said that I would love to have had this kind of education in my primary and secondary years. That's the number one comment I get. I wish I did too, especially because learning about finance in a group is really helpful, because folks, once you kind of create that trust, folks start sharing, like, this is what my family does, or this is what I do, or this is what, and having different perspectives on money, because the money is so emotional, even though it's also very transactional. It's kind of sometimes can be a dangerous thing. It really helps students solidify strategies and things, because there's different perspectives, there's different ways of navigating in the room, and that can be really helpful. It's also really good for our volunteers, because it teaches them to diversify how they speak. It's not just, this is what I do and this is what works for me. It's very much here are some strategies to if you're wanting to make a big purchase, like, when do you want to do that? Is it something you can save for? Is it something you should take some credit out for now? And then you can, and it's really wonderful. My contact information, I will pop that in the chat. So rural areas. So that's my heart. I live in very rural Oregon. How do we reach individuals in the rural area? So in the short term, virtual opportunities are really great. Rural folks don't love virtual opportunities. I know that. So there has to be some really strategic planning. So what I do is if I know that there is an opportunity for some virtual classes coming up, then I do some really targeted recruitment for volunteers in that area. I do tend to start with folks that work in the financial sector because they already have a really great understanding of finance, and then we teach them how to do engagement. In Tillamook County, in not just Tillamook, but in the outside areas, we've done a really strategic bringing financial literacy to the whole county based on community partnerships. So we partnered with the local DVSA organization, we partnered with the high school, we partnered with the community college, and we've partnered with the hospital, and have created classes both in English and in Spanish for different age groups. And then the volunteers we strategically recruited, and I did volunteer orientations for those folks in the room in person with food, because you should always do food, and then created classes around when those folks could do it. Eventually, I'd love to have it be where it's in Portland, right? Like it is in Portland. Just, hey, I need you to come in and teach a class next week to 26 seniors. Great. I'll have someone in your classroom. In some of the rural places, we have to be a little bit more strategic. Like, I have a volunteer, they're available here. Can we make a class work here? And that's my job. That's what I do. I love doing that part. Lots of folks in rural areas wear multiple hats. And so having a few key strategic contacts can really help make a lot of impact across a small town or a small county. I don't have resources for pre-K, but I do have kindergarten. I think that might be the last of the questions. Thank you for all the affirmations too. It is a great program. I really stand by it. I love what I do. I'm happy to support you in any way. So Annie put my email in there. I will also push out flyers that we have, and it's really great. There's a flyer I have that has just like a quick overview of all of our programs, and then there's a flyer for each individual program. So I'll make sure and send all of those out so that you have those, whether you want to just have them for yourself, or if you wanted to connect with me, create a class, then we already have some flyers that we can hand out to your participants. We can just add a date, maybe some co-branding, similar to what Annie and I did. So yeah, I will push all of that out. Then you'll have all of my information, as well as the checklist of what I need from you if you want to schedule classes with us. Okay, I think we did it. It's 10:50.
Awesome. Well, I, as you know, am a huge fan. Just super appreciative of all the work that Marie, you and your team and all the volunteers do. We've had two different, so we have a 3-part program, and we've had 2 different volunteers, and they both have been excellent. So just a really great program, and super excited that we were able to offer that to the teens that chose to come, or their families chose for them to come. So thank you so much again. Amazing programming. I feel like when I was looking through all the different offerings, I just wanted to go to all of them. They're just, as a former educator, I just think it's so important and something that is missed in the school system. So thank you for doing what you do. And thank you to all of you. Thank you, Gabby and Dave. I don't think Dave's on anymore. And Marie, for incredible presentations today. All of you doing such different but super important things for our community, and just really appreciate you. So I will follow up on Friday's email with all of the information that is shared with me. And we have 2 more minutes. If anyone has an event or something coming up that they want to share, you have 2 minutes left. Looks like a couple people are putting some things in the chat. Awesome. Anything else? And the CSN does have a disability resource fair, employment fair on Thursday from 1 to 4 at the DPI group. So just keep that in mind and feel free to share as well. Okay. Well, I will stay on in case anyone has anything to share, but thank you all so much wonderful presentations today. Super appreciate you. Have a lovely Tuesday and enjoy your day. Take care.